Hey Dylan, this is Johnny at GT Imports. I wanted to show you a couple things about the Prelude, starting with the highest thing on my priority list, which is the inner steering rack boots. You can see here it's completely broken through. The outer boots, as you can see, are very much intact. Here's the other side, and the right side here. It's detached. It's a little bit hard to show at this angle, but it should be connected right there. Since we have to remove the outer tie rods to actually do these boots, we'll need to also align it. The biggest reason I suggest this is simply because your power steering rack is not leaking, and if it gets to the point where at these joints it starts leaking because they've been neglected and they get filled with dirt and grime, then you'll be looking at an entire power steering rack, which is a much more significant repair to be doing. And lastly, while I'm under the car, I want to bring to your attention just the oil sheen that is covering basically the entire underside of the engine and the transmission. I'll go over when I get the car down and get on top of it what they actually are. But you can see the left side, there's a decent amount of oil, not really any huge drip spots, but when you get to the right side, that's when you start seeing it collecting, and this is probably where y'all are seeing actual drips in your driveway, and things get pretty coated under here. That's actually coming from a couple of different sources, which I'll point out in just a second here. I am also going to recommend replacing an axle. The reason being is you can see around the outside edge of this axle boot, there's a small amount of grease, especially when you get to the upper left of the screen up there. It's just slightly seeping out of there. I'd give that a little bit of time before it erupts into something bigger. You can also see the trail where it's kind of slipped out. The outer axle is really where it's coming out, and that's all grease. You can see on the arm right there, it's kicking up as well as it kind of gets slung around. So it would actually be cheaper to replace the axle than to take the axle off, strip the boots off, clean it, put new boots on, and then put it back together. So you'll see that on the estimate as well. Okay, this is one of the leaks I was talking about. Power steering pump, right here. It's actually a pretty severe leak. It's certainly enough to fail a state inspection. When the power steering oil starts dripping out, it's considered a safety concern. And you can see it on the oil pan. It made its way all the way to the bottom there. So you can kind of see how it's really getting in there and covering a lot of pieces. What we would do is rebuild the pump and replace the rubber O-rings and washers rather than replace the entire pump to take care of this, which would save a fair amount of money. Okay, now we're on the right side, which was the heavier concentration of oil, where it was actually dripping off of the engine and transmission. I'm going to kind of try to differentiate these two spots, although it looks kind of the same. The VTEC solenoid is leaking, and that's what's responsible for a lot of this that you can see goes all the way down to almost the floor if the camera would reach that far. But that's essentially this piece right here. It's not the most expensive repair, which is good, and it is pressurized, so it can really leak a lot of oil. The next thing is the distributor O-ring. We can't tell if it's the entire distributor housing that we need to do or the O-ring until we first do the O-ring and see if that makes it better. Under here is where you'll see that, where it builds up under there. And I will attach the estimate so you can get an idea of everything we're looking at here and kind of give you a priority list in the email.